Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this video. I appreciate you if you are watching this video. It's your boy Robbie, and I'm back with another reaction. This one we're going to be reacting to is going to be from Boxhead, and this one is talking about the most painful space deaths ever. Now, I've always loved the whole idea of space and the planets, and even some of the movies that I watch most of the times tend to take place in space. But will I take my ass out there? Absolutely not. Ain't no amount of money you can pay me to go to space. But we're not gonna waste no time. Make sure you like, sub to the channel, and let's get to this video.
Let's talk about some astronauts who suffered painful deaths. In, well, space, of course. Starting with the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. This story is about a space shuttle that was supposed to return home safely, but instead became a disaster that burned the whole crew inside alive, where their bodies then smashed into the ground. Yeah, let's rewind to January 16th, 2003. Columbia, the oldest space shuttle in NASA's fleet, is sitting on the launch pad at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission, a scientific research flight. 7 astronauts were ready to do 80 experiments in space. They say they wanted to study what happens to microbiological processes in the absence of gravity. Whatever the hell that means. I like your little funny words, Magic Man. Anyways, let's get into who was actually on the space shuttle. First, we have Commander Rick Husband, a pilot who was well at the wheel. With him was pilot William McCool, and also mission specialist Michael Anderson. And then we have Ilan Ramon, who was Israel's first astronaut, and keep this in the back of your mind because it's really important. We also have Kalpana Chawla, David Brown, and Laurel Clark.
We got a pretty good mix of
This wasn't just
people.
any crew. These were some of the biggest, nerdiest, brainiest minds on the planet. Now, what exactly caused their painful deaths? It has been months of prep work, training, and planning until it was finally go time. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Blah, blah, you get the goddamn point. You guys have ever seen a rocket take off? I don't need to explain it to you. Well, during this launch, a piece of foam insulation from the big orange fuel tank actually broke off and struck Columbia's left wing. A bit of foam? What the hell, Boxhead? What? That's not a big deal. So you would think. But in the world of space travel, even the smallest inch can be a massive problem. Yes, size matters here. Now, here's the interesting part. NASA engineers actually did in fact notice this. They saw the footage of the foam hitting the wing, but here's the thing. They didn't think it was that big of a deal. A piece of foam hitting a large metal rocket, I mean...
Now, you up here in the command center or whatever, you see a piece of foam come off the rocket booster or whatever and hit Columbia, and you don't think that's a big deal? Like, you're literally sending 7 or 6, however many it was, human beings into outer space. Like, that ain't something to take lightly. You know what I'm saying? Like, their lives are in y'all hands. But it could also be that there was no option to turn back. It's like, once they got going, that was it. But damn, you know what I'm saying?
Who cares? Now, wait. I take that back because some of the engineers were concerned. They knew that if the heat-resistant tiles on the wing were damaged, it could mean a disaster during re-entry. I mean, when something flies into the atmosphere, if you guys didn't know this, it burns up like crazy. So they need all the protection they can get. But did anyone listen? Let's just say, not really. They asked for satellite images to assess the damage, but the request was denied. Yeah, denied. The higher-ups at NASA in charge of the safety inspections, or the mission management team, thought that the risk was low and they decided to carry on with the mission as planned. Hey, what's more expensive, the whole ship and crew or some satellite pictures, huh? Hey, it's tax dollars, who cares? Is probably how something like that went. This whole thing was caused because of overconfidence and the assumption that nothing could go wrong. For 16 days, the Columbia crew was busy doing what astronauts do best: nerd. They were conducting experiments on everything from the behavior of flames in microgravity to how spiders spin webs in space. I mean, spiders in space? That's either the coolest goddamn thing I've ever heard, or it's either the creepiest. But yeah, they were up there doing their thing and the world watched. And for a while, it seemed like another successful NASA mission. Families of the astronauts were happy and excited, knowing that their loved ones up there were doing amazing and big things. And the rest of us, well, we're just happy to see some space stuff. I mean, you don't really get to see that every day. The ship did its thing, the astronauts performed their experiments, and talked to the ground. I'm sure while they were up there, they actually learned a lot about what happens in the lack of gravity and all that, you know, the nerd that my box brain is way too small to understand. But then, after 2 weeks of all going to plan, the worst happened. February 1st, 2003. Columbia was scheduled to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and land safely back at the Kennedy Space Center. But as the shuttle made its dive into the Earth, something went horribly wrong. And the crew actually noticed that something was going wrong. Colonel Rick Husband said on the mic, and I repeat, "Roger, Those were his last words. At 9 o'clock, as the shuttle entered the atmosphere, the damaged left wing allowed superheated air to penetrate the wing structure. The heat-resistant tiles, which were supposed to protect the shuttle, had been damaged from the deadly foam. And what happened next? The wing started to disintegrate, ripping apart and then...
Damn. So picture this, right? Imagine you are on a spacecraft headed back to Earth, and you're already in your mind contemplating, man, I'm about to get me a cheeseburger. I'm about to see my family. I'm about to kiss on my wife or my husband, whatever. And that happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you thinking at that moment? Like, I could only imagine they were probably, it was definitely instant. They didn't feel anything, but it's just like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, what were their last thoughts? Like, damn, I'm about to die today. I'm about to be out of here. All because of a wing that experienced damage on the way up. And we're now paying for it on the way back. Like,
yeah, you heard me correctly, and it was so fast, it was 18 times the speed of sound. That's not just fast, that's goddamn zooming. And to be torn apart at that speed, the destruction was almost instant. Almost too quick to even comprehend. I mean, guys, 1 minute they were coming home and the next, they were gone. Now hold on, how could this happen? How could NASA let this slip through the cracks? As you would expect, investigations began immediately. The Columbia Accident Investigation Board was formed to find out what went wrong.
now, if I remember correctly, because again, I kind of, I've always been to like space stuff and stuff like that. I want to say Columbia, like they said, it was one of the oldest spacecrafts in their fleet. I think Columbia had been making space travel since the 80s. So this is 2003. You know what I'm saying? So like a car, it's got many miles on it. So they should have been retired that spacecraft, in my opinion.
And whoo, did they find some things. The foam strike was identified as the cause of the disaster, but it was actually more than that. NASA itself had ignored the warnings and 7 innocent people paid the price. Not only that, but remember that Israeli astronaut, Ilan Ramon? Well, him being on board made people think that this could have been a terrorist attack. No, seriously. Remember, this was shortly after 9/11, so America was terrified that that's what it was. But ladies and box heads, the investigation showed that the only terrorist here was the goddamn foam. Alright, now let's talk about Soyuz 11. This next one wasn't American. Remember in those early days, the space race was on between the Americans and the Soviets. June 1971, picture this. The Cold War is in full swing. The United States and the Soviet Union are neck and neck, each trying to outdo the other with everything. And then we have Soyuz 11, a mission that was supposed to be a historic success, but turned into one of the most tragic events in space history. Maybe I should start saying space exploration history, because isn't like history everywhere in space? You know what I'm saying? I'm on a tangent. Let me set the stage for you. The Soviet Union had already achieved the first satellite, the first human in space, you name it. They were kicking America in the goddamn ass. Now they were about to pull off another first, manning the world's first space station, Salyut 1. Great, thought America. Before 11, the Soyuz 10 mission was a mission to attempt the docking before, but failed to dock with the station due to technical issues and...
These cats was dead set on playing a deadly piss contest basically. Y'all was playing a piss contest, but with your life, like just to get to space. Now, 1971, I know they said we went to the moon in 1969, but I kind of got my suspicions about that. But 1971, we trying to go to space, like the technology and stuff like that is just, you know what I'm saying? It's just not there.
And they returned home. Woohoo! Cheered the Americans as they f***ed it up. Soyuz 11 was the Soviet Union's second attempt at this. The plan was simple: dock with Salyut 1, spend a few weeks conducting scientific experiments, and return home as heroes of the motherland, comrades. It's our space shuttle, comrades. The crew of Soyuz 11 was 3 astronauts: Commander Georgy Dobrovolsky, flight engineer Viktor Patsayev, and research engineer Vladislav Volkov. These guys were the cream of the crop, or the vodka of the vodka? I don't really know what Russians do other than drink vodka. But then again, what does America do? I don't know. June 6th, 1971. Soyuz 11 approached the Salyut 1 station. They held their breath as they got closer. Tick, tock, closer still. The moment of truth. The astronauts adjusted the module and got closer. Click. They had successfully docked with Salyut 1. This was a huge win for the Soviets. The crew entered the space station and began their mission. For 23 days, they conducted experiments on what happens to bone density when people stay in space for a while. They watched the Earth from the orbit, measured sun wavelengths from space, and even broadcasted for live TV from space. I mean, imagine going live from a space station in 1971. Like a goddamn 1970s Twitch stream. Hey, what's going on, chat? Today we're going to be doing a Let's Play of America in the space race. Thanks for the 3-month sub, Cuba. Really appreciate it. Anyways, things weren't really all that smooth. Salyut 1 had some serious issues. Technical malfunctions, problems with air quality, you goddamn name it. First was the failed docking of the Soyuz 10. Then, once the crew of 11 were on board, they started noticing a weird smell. On the station, the filters were malfunctioning and causing a strange smell throughout the station, which is what they were smelling. More than that, the power supply kept going out, which was a constant issue with their experiments for measuring the sun's wavelengths. But the crew pushed on, determined to complete their mission. One thing the Russians are great at is pushing through some shitty goddamn conditions. Every country that's ever tried to invade them in the winter had a bad time. But then the time came to return home. June 29th, 1971. Soyuz 11 undocked from Salyut 1 and began its descension back to Earth. Everything seemed normal. The crew was calm, the spacecraft was functioning as expected, and the world was kicked back and watching from home. You know, watching them come back home. But then, during re-entry, the most dangerous time besides takeoff actually, things went horribly wrong. A loud sucking noise is heard. Air is rapidly sucked out. The men gasped for air. Come in, come in! Nothing. The rescue teams were on high alert and made their way to the module. What they found was absolutely horrifying. A cabin vent valve designed to equalize pressure when landing, which, by the way, don't worry, I didn't know what that was either, accidentally opened in the vacuum of space.
Yo, what's crazy is that it seems like all of these problems tend to happen on the re-entry back into Earth's atmosphere. But it'd be the little, I wouldn't say it's little, but something like that. It's when you are taking these type of missions, there's like no margin for error. Like every little thing has to be checked. All the pressure valves, everything, switches, air quality, cabin, everything has to be checked. There can't be nothing left unnoticed, no stone unturned, because just the smallest mistake can cost life.
Hey guys, you mind if I crack a window? God damn it, Jerry. In less than 30 seconds, all of the air in the capsule vented into space. The astronauts, without their pressure suits because, you know, no one expected the cabin to depressurize, were instantly exposed to the vacuum of space and died instantly. Now let's just pause here for a second. Imagine that, sitting in a spacecraft thinking you're minutes away from home and then poof, all the air is gone just like this. As Soyuz 11 descended through the atmosphere, ground control tried to make contact with the crew, but there was no response, just silence. The capsule landed in Kazakhstan, and recovery teams rushed over to open it. The rescue teams opened the door, it slowly opened. The rescue teams looked inside. "Oh my great heavens," one probably said. It was horrible. All 3 of the astronauts were dead. Strapped in their seats, their faces looked like frozen skeletons with their skin sucked to the bone, with obviously signs of suffocation from space. The Soviet Union was devastated. The loss of the astronauts was a blow not to just the space program, but to the nation as a whole. But Bach says, seriously, these guys gave their lives for the advancement of human knowledge, so to me, they're heroes. And again, most of us watching this video,
Like, could any of y'all imagine being in that small ass pod like that, especially if you claustrophobic? Like, I know a lot of people would be in there panicking, having an anxiety attack. The anxiety attack alone would probably kill them before the vacuum of space do. Because I don't even think I could be in something that tight. Being in tight quarters like that, no.
probably sit around on our couch and eat glue. These men are goddamn heroes. Okay, now I've been bashing NASA a little bit too much in this video, but hold on, what if I told you they misled us into believing Earth is the only planet capable of having life on it? And that it might not be true. Because scientists have recently uncovered a misunderstanding about Uranus. What misunderstanding, you may ask? Well, apparently new analysis indicates that Uranus and its 5 largest moons may not be dead worlds, suggesting the potential for life. Now you're probably thinking, how the hell do I know if I'm getting the full picture and there might actually be life on a different planet in our solar system? Because come on, we all know some news articles from some companies. By the way, is why box heads are ground like summary and who owns
Get your
ground
money,
news
man.
isn't non-part. Then head over to news. Now let's get back into the video. Now let's talk about the Challenger explosion, January 28th, 1986. Another group of American astronauts would die horribly. And on live TV, a day that many of our parents probably still remember, all of a bit too well. The Challenger mission was one of many shuttle missions that had become almost routine for NASA. No big deal, kick back, easy kind of stuff. This was supposed to be the 25th shuttle mission, and the first ever to include a regular civilian. What could go wrong there? And by the way, her name was Krista McAuliffe. She was a school teacher that was supposed to be a part of the crew in space. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. It sounds a bit crazy, I know.
Your first and last trip that you'll ever take is crazy.
Teacher in space? What the? The idea was to show kids going to space was something you could aspire to do, no matter who you were. Oh, don't worry, NASA. After watching this video, I don't want to go to space anymore. I'm perfectly good on the ground. Anyways, let's talk about the crew of 7, who was Commander Francis R. Scobie, pilot Michael J. Smith, mission specialist Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, and Judith Resnick, payload specialist Gregory Jarvis, and of course, our teacher Krista McAuliffe. Now let's talk about the build-up. So, the Challenger launch had already been delayed multiple times due to bad weather and technical issues. Should have just taken the message. And then, on the morning of January 28th, temperatures at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida had plummeted to below freezing. Yeah, and if you live under a rock, Florida doesn't usually get that goddamn cold. So here's the thing, the cold was
That was a
actually a
sign.
big deal. The shuttle's solid rocket boosters were sealed with what are called O-rings. Yeah, I don't know what that means either, so let's take a look at the wiki, shall we? They're rubber gaskets that were supposed to prevent hot gases from escaping during the launch.
Right. If you work on cars, because I do be working on cars, like your power steering pump, like just different components underneath the hood require O-rings. Like when I was what was I replacing? I think it was on my Acura. I forgot what it was, but I had to replace something with my power steering, but I had to replace my O-ring. I actually got some O-rings out there. But yeah, it's a gasket basically.
For those that didn't know, the rockets get very warm. Some say they get to at least 100 degrees. But these O-rings weren't tested for such cold conditions. Yeah, none of these boys look great in the cold, if you know what I'm saying.
So they most likely became like brittle in a way because of the cold weather. So when, and I'm sure they're going to say it, when that heat got to it, you know, heat makes things expand. So it probably shattered the O-rings at some point.
Bad time. Engineers from Morton Thiokol, the company that actually manufactured the boosters, were even goddamn concerned. They had warned NASA that the O-rings could fail in the cold. So, what did our trusty guys at NASA do? They probably debated, they probably yelled, discussed, and all in the end it didn't matter because they decided to go ahead with the launch. Bunch of nerds in a circle. Oh yeah, you're so smart? No, you're so smart. Nah, bro, close your eyes, bro. Okay, bro. What do you see, bro? Nothing, bro. That's my world without you, bro. That's probably how it went, bro. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is the nerds were under some pressure to keep to the schedule. The desire to maintain public and political support all played a role in the decision. So here we are, January 28th, 1987, 11:38 EST. 10, 9,
86 or 87?
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The world watched as Challenger lifted off into the clear blue sky. Families, friends, and millions of viewers were glued to their TVs, especially the students, eager to see a teacher, Krista McAuliffe, make history. And well, because they're in this video, they definitely made history. For the first 73 seconds,
I know them kids was like, hey, look, it's such and such, it's such and such, it's Miss such and such, just in awe. And then next thing you know, the unthinkable happened.
Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But then, at an altitude of 46,000 feet, something went horribly wrong. A plume of flame appeared, a sign that the O-rings had just failed, just as the engineers had feared. The external fuel tank erupted, more flames, and then kaboom! The world watched the disintegration of the entire shuttle. The Challenger exploded in a massive fireball, and all that was left were pieces of debris falling into the Atlantic Ocean.
Man, hell no. Like, again, can you imagine that? Like, you are in a spacecraft headed to space. This is your first time, mind you. You ain't never been to space in your life. You a teacher. You've been on the ground your whole life. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to get on this spacecraft. I'm going to be the first to volunteer, show my students in class, like, hey, look at me. I'm in space. You can do this too. And kaboom, whole damn aircraft goes up in flames. You don't feel it because it's instant death, but that has to be a horrible, horrible experience. You don't even have time to think, really. Like, it's just over. There's no thinking. There's no nothing. Your life is just over. It's crazy. The entire crew was killed instantly. The crew compartment was seen tumbling through the sky, and then it was gone, just like that. In an instant, 7 lives were lost. The Challenger disaster was broadcasted live, meaning millions of people, including children, witnessed the explosion in real time. Ask your parents about it, they will look like this guy right here. Not a pretty sight. In the hours and days that followed, the families of the crew were left to deal with the loss of their loved ones. President Ronald Reagan was scheduled to give his State of the Union address that evening, but instead, he addressed the nation about this tragedy. This was the exact quote, actually. And I would imagine that the families, the victims, the family of the victims probably didn't even get compensated for this, especially the teacher, because she volunteered. So she probably wasn't even getting paid for this. Like, you're not even getting compensated for this. Not that it would matter anyway because you're gone, but at least if you got any family, you know, they could take the proceeds or whatever, but you probably wouldn't even get no bread for this, man. Like, shit.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
NASA immediately grounded the shuttle program and launched an investigation into what actually went wrong. The Rogers Commission was formed. led by former Secretary of State William Rogers. The investigation revealed the O-rings had indeed failed, as the engineers had warned. The cold weather had allowed hot gases to escape.
I know I'm pausing the video, but this what I don't be understanding. Like when these, like, what's the point in having these engineers and these people that work on these aircrafts? What's the point in having them there if you're not even going to take heed to what they're saying? If all you're going to do is just carry out the mission. If they telling you, look, the O-rings failed. Look, this piece of debris came off of the orange rocket booster. Like, why not take heed to that? What you got them there for if you're not going to take their advice? You know what I'm saying? Y'all just so worried about meeting the deadline and you got all this money behind it. Look, you got lives in your hands. The money don't matter at that point. Look, let's just make sure we get them there safely and we get them here back safely. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and caused the explosion. But it wasn't just a technical failure. It was also a failure of management and communication. NASA had been warned, but those warnings were ignored once again. I mean, we're seeing a trend here. Richard Feynman, in his famous demonstration during the hearings, actually dipped an O-ring into a glass of ice water, which in fact showed how the rubber lost its flexibility in the cold. Oh.
Right.
The audience. Okay, last one. So in the end, what came of all this? The Challenger disaster forced NASA to take a long, hard look at its practices, its culture, and its priorities. By the way, I forgot to mention the shuttle program was grounded for nearly 3 years. The disaster also led to changes in how risks were communicated and assessed within the organization. And before we move on to the next section, let's not forget that Krista McAuliffe was a civilian. She wasn't even supposed to be on the space shuttle. Gosh. All right, next up we have Apollo 13. Now, I know the rest of the stories everyone died, but this one's a little bit different. Sue me if you think it's clickbait. April 1970. Apollo 11 had already made history by landing the first humans on the moon. Well, if it's real. And Apollo 12 followed with another successful moon landing. So, ladies and box heads, let's do a little bit of math. What's next? Apollo 13, of course. I mean, they did it twice before, so how hard could it really be? Okay, so Apollo 13 was supposed to be the third mission to land on the moon. You know, with actual people on it. The crew was Commander Jim Lovell, Command Module Pilot Jack Swigert, and Lunar Module Pilot Fred Hayes. These guys were ready to explore the Fra Mauro region of the moon. Whatever that means, all of this is just moon to me. But what started as a scientific mission quickly turned into a fight for survival. April 11th, 1970, Apollo 13 lifted off from Kennedy Space Center. 10, 9, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you get it. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But as you've probably guessed, things were about to go south. Not as bad as the other stories because those people died instantly. But it's still rough. Let's fast forward to April 13th, 1970. For the math impaired, that's 2 days into the mission. They were cruising through space and everything was chill. A vibe, as the youngins say nowadays. And then bang! An ocean tank in the service module exploded. And in case you didn't know, people need oxygen to survive. Imagine sitting in a spaceship over 200,000 miles from Earth and suddenly hearing a loud bang. Not exactly the sound you want to hear when you're in the vacuum of space, right? Then again, was there a real bang? I thought there was no sound in space. Are they lying to us about this?
I'm pausing the video, but I truly believe they were. Let's look up something real quick. Let's put this. Let me look up something real quick. Let's ask Google how far. Apologies, y'all. My video just stopped recording, so I had to come back. But yeah, 238,900 miles away from Earth. So how in the hell did we get to the moon back in 1979 with Neil Armstrong? We didn't even have the technology like we do now. And even now in 2003, in the 2000s, where technology was far more advanced than it was in 1970, we were still having issues and things like that on re-entries and stuff like that. Now, this was just due to human error, negligence and stuff like that. But still, like, yeah, I don't believe we've been to no moon, but we're going to get back to the video.
Okay, well, regardless of how they detected it, the explosion crippled the spacecraft. The oxygen levels fell, the power dropped, and the crew was left in the dark. Literally. The moon landing, yeah, that was out the window. And hold on, this is where the famous line comes in.
Houston, we have a problem.
Okay, quick side note, the actual quote was,
Hey, Houston, we've had a problem here.
let's be real, this version has a better ring to it. Either way, those words signaled the beginning of one of the most intense rescue missions in space history. So, here's the situation. 3 astronauts are now stranded in space. They have a damaged spacecraft and they're losing power, and with it, their air. It was a goddamn ticking time bomb up there. And the mission control team back in Houston had to figure out how to get these guys home alive. AAA doesn't do space coverage yet. We're not at that part of the business. Anyways, what was the first order of business? Figuring out how to use the lunar module, or for those who don't know what that is yet, it's what actually lands on the moon. Using that as a lifeboat. But that thing wasn't meant to support 3 people for a long period of time. But desperate times call for desperate measures. The crew shut down the command module to conserve power and moved into the LM. Now hold on, things weren't so bad to where it was time to eat a crew member yet, but you know, it was bad. It was cramped, cold, and the conditions were getting here. In a tiny spacecraft floating in the blackness of space, knowing that the smallest mistake could mean the difference between life and goddamn death. The crew had to navigate using only the stars and perform complex calculations by hand. Dude, I can't calculate my bills without a calculator. I died real quick up there. Mission Control, they were working, trying to come up with solutions to problems that they've never had to encounter before. Just when you thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Okay, no, the LM's life support system was designed to filter out carbon dioxide, but it was only equipped to handle 2 astronauts for a short period. With 3 astronauts on board, the CO2 levels started to rise and fast. If you guys saw my K video, you'll see why a large group of people in an enclosed area is bad for breathing. The ground team had to come up with a way to fit a square peg in a round hole. Literally. The command module had a square component for the airlines, and the lunar module had round ones. So what did they do? They used duct tape, plastic bags, and a sock to rig a device that would literally allow the square scrubbers to fit into the round holes. And guess what? It worked. The crew was able to bring the CO2 levels down to a safe level. I mean, duct tape and a sock saved these guys' lives. That's not all I do with tape and a sock.
Wow.
But hold on, it doesn't stop
was
there.
fast
The
thinking.
next challenge? All right, that's getting back to Earth. With the CM shut down, the crew had to conserve every bit of power that they had for re-entry. They faced freezing temperatures, water shortages, and exhaustion. So basically just life in Michigan. They also had to manually adjust their course using the LM thrusters, making sure they hit the narrow re-entry that would bring them safely back to Earth. Too shallow and they'd skip off the atmosphere and be lost in space forever. Too steep and they'd burn up on re-entry. No pressure, right? Imagine the intensity in the spacecraft, knowing that everything depended on this one maneuver. April 17th, 1970, the moment of truth. Almost a week of this. The crew powered up the CM, hoping it would still work after days of being shut down. The space shuttle rattled, alarms beeped, fire all around. I mean, the module literally looked like a damn meteor. Comms go down during this process for longer than usual.
Apollo, this is Mission Control. Do you read?
Waiting for a signal, any sign that the crew was still alive. Nothing. And then, hello Houston, this is Odyssey, it's good to see ya. Woo! Applause in the Mission Control. They made it. The crew of Apollo 13 arrived back on Earth safely in the Pacific Ocean, where they were quickly picked up by recovery teams. And honestly, isn't that just
That's what's up.
beautiful? So what's the takeaway here? Apollo 13 didn't make it to the moon, but it succeeded in ways that no one thought they could. It showcased honestly the best of NASA, and I spent most of this video bashing NASA, but I don't want to get it twisted. I think NASA is a great organization, so I wanted to end off on a good note. But I know most of you guys are weirdos, so if you do want to see 2 hours of the most painful deaths that have happened to humans, click this video right here.
All right, that's the end of that video. But yeah, man, talk about crazy. I mean, of course, you know, passing away in that fashion, you don't really feel it, but it's just like, what a way to go. Not a proper send off. You know what I'm saying? Like your family's not there, none of that. You just are just debris, you know, you're just particles in whatever, you know, in a field somewhere. But yeah, y'all let me know what y'all thought about that video down in the comments. That was a pretty good one. Probably have to react to some more videos from this channel. Add some different type of reactions to the channel, give y'all different perspective instead of everything being so gossip based. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the video. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you for watching. Once again, it's your boy Robbie. I'm going to see y'all in the next one, all right?